Welcome everyone to episode 4 of the Pussy-Led Business Podcast. I am super excited for tonight's guest. It's someone that we've kind of been around on Instagram. We've had a few juicy little chats in the past, and finally she's virtually in front of me. So welcome to the podcast, Chloe de Sousa.
Hey, I just love that we're finally hanging out. Like a whole hour.
I know, me too. It's amazing. So your Instagram handle is Feral Grace. Some people might know you, and of course I'll put the handle in the show notes. Absolutely recommend going to give her a follow immediately, especially if you like some saucy images, because she has a lot of saucy imagery on her page,
I do.
and
I do.
we live for it.
Yeah, I'm a rule breaker. That's probably why I do what I do.
Yeah. So what do you do in your own words for our beautiful audience?
Yeah, fantastic. I'm a love, sex, and relationship coach. On Instagram, I would talk about intimacy because otherwise, as you all know, we all get taken down. I'm a dance movement psychotherapist. I'm an ecstatic dance teacher, and I've made myself my own name in terms of being a self-leadership mentor. So I'm really interested in breaking down conventions, which is why I talk about sex a lot and relationships and how to navigate your world so you've got it working for you.
Very important when it comes to sex and pleasure.
Yes.
So what brought you into this wonderful world of ecstatic dance, sex, intimacy, love? Take us on a bit of a journey. Tell us your story.
Yeah, I will do because I have like 20 years in the field. Like for me,
Mm.
my body's been my inquiry like my whole life, but it really lit up when I was studying at university. And a friend of mine said, there's this great dance class, you've got to come, but you're meant to have done an introduction, so pretend you've done it before. I was like, yeah. And that like I found home. I found home that night. I was like, okay, blown away. There was a space for my freedom. There was a space for my wild. And what I noticed was starting to digest the stuff that was in my body that was being stored.
Mm.
So in my job, I talk a lot with my clients about the body story. What's their story of their body? What's it holding? How can we integrate that? How can we go beyond the limitation of what you're holding? So I went on and I studied dance movement psychotherapy to get me a passport into institutions that suck. And there's some good stuff in there, but we want also some more movement for a lot of people. And then I studied Gabrielle Roth's Five Rhythms.
Cool.
She was great. I was lucky to hang out with her before she
Wow.
passed. I did a lot of dancing in America, in California, all over the world, in Europe. It was like it was like my freedom ticket.
Mm.
Um, and then I started to sort of I like sort of fast moving things. I like progress. I like to be on the edge. So a few years back, I said to my friend, I'm looking for something cutting edge. I'm looking for something, wild. And she said, "What is it?" I said, "I don't know. I haven't found it yet." But like I was sniffing out big time. And I came across love, sexuality, and relationship training, the embodiment process, and it just fast tracks so much of what's going on in terms of psychotherapy, which has a great place. But like
Mm.
if you want to navigate change that's really sustained, if you want to step out of a story you're very used to, the somatic embodiment stuff is magic. It's
Mm.
alchemy. It's alchemy before your very eyes. And that gets me excited. And I like to feel excited.
Mm.
But dance, you're going to experience your sexuality. Your eros is going to rise up in you. If you're moving your body, you're going to feel turned on at some point if it feels safe to. So it came together, dance and sexuality.
I love it. What was the hardest thing about being like, okay, I've got these two things. I'm feeling this dance stuff. I can feel the shift in my body. And then okay, I've kind of got this experience with psychotherapy. I, want to work in relationship space. Then how did you think right, coaching, or this is what I'm going to do? How did that kind of come together?
Well, I love the name of your podcast, I have to say, Pussy Led Biz. So I was having a bit of a crisis in my life, which hopefully all coaches have had, because if they haven't, they're probably not qualified to work with you.
Correct.
Syndra's
At
nodding.
least
Syndra's like
one.
really nodding at this point. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You know, people are like, how did you get into this work? I'm like, heartbreak, like
Like
fucking
a hot mess.
shattering. Yeah, like proper breakthrough. Um, and so like I think for me, like I needed tools. I needed some tools, but I've always within this like hard time in my life, like literally I was dancing and there was a kind of spirit in the room, if you like. There was a voice speaking to me, and she said like whatever that is, she said, what if it could be fun? And I was like, you're kidding me, right? Like this is like one of the worst moments of my life and you're telling me it could be fun.
Mm,
But that's what's radical about bringing pleasure into these moments. But also at that point, me and my pussy were at a point where like we needed a breakthrough. And I literally made a pact and I was like, okay, you lead. You lead, I will
mm,
follow.
mm,
And she was like, we're gonna go. We're gonna go, it's gonna be fun. Yes, it's gonna be radical. Yes, you're gonna have to get used to visibility. And I just started. But that's what I do. I jump in with both feet. I just started. I didn't That's how my successes have always come about. Same when I started the full moon dance in London for women years ago. It's still going. I handed it on. But when someone asked me to do that, I just started it. And people came, people came and they're still coming and they're still dancing. And it's the same with Fell Grace. I was
mm,
like, if you tell me that something's a go from that deep place within me, we're going to do it.
mm.
But, and,
Where
and,
does that come from though? Because I feel like a lot of people have the get up and go. However, they
mhm,
don't have the solid base to be like, I'm going to follow through even when I'm not making any money, even when no one's looking at my Instagram
mhm.
posts. Like, where does that kind of come from in you?
Um, Oh, I'm very driven. I'm very passionate, and I get locked in a good way. So most of my peak experiences in my life, whether that was pain or pleasure, came from full commitment. So for me, it's uncomfortable because I know myself well to be half in and half out.
Mm,
Like if you want a return, be all in, even if it's all in the frustration that no one's checking your gram that day.
mm,
But also, I know for a fact, having held space for over 20 years now, that sometimes when I'm putting a playlist together or choosing a theme for a dance floor I'm about to hold, although it's for the whole group, sometimes it's for that one person. And because, like I said before this call started, I love people. Doing it for that one person for me makes it so worthwhile. So maybe you're producing content and it gets 3 likes, but if within that 1 like you change somebody's day, totally worth it. But
yeah.
that's when it's not about you anymore. Like there's people whose lives that I've changed, I don't even know that I did. It's not about me.
Mm,
It's about whether like humanity is present, whether, change is present, whether someone's dream that got crushed just sprouted again.
mm,
Like that's the why for me.
mm. When you're saying that, I just got like shivers because I'm not sure if you see this or if you feel this in the industry at the moment. However, a lot of what I'm seeing in the coaching industry at the moment is not about other people. It's about the coach, it's about the person, and it's about what they've got or, how much money they've made, which is great. Like, I'm
Yeah.
all for it. Like, go, sis, go. Like, I'm
Hmm.
fucking there. Fabulous. However, I do feel like, and I'm not sure if it's in intimacy coaching as much. However, I do feel like, at least in business coaching and similar kind of coaching, that it has become a little bit self-centered with what I'm seeing, and not why people get into coaching.
Yeah.
However, I do feel like people do get disenchanted with that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's the whole celebrity thing, isn't it? It's like, oh, suddenly on Instagram we get to be the celebrity culture.
Mm,
Um, and I call myself in around that as well.
mm,
Like, wait, what is my why?
mm,
So feral grace is why, and I'm sure you coach people around this, Sindra. You know, it is for individually for women or for the people that come towards me, the change that they want to make.
mm,
But it's also a broader why. Right now on the planet, we really do need to step into our self-leadership. We need to make change. And when you do that collectively, that's when we get much more planetary change that hopefully has some humanity in it. So that's my bigger why is can I develop as many leaders as I possibly can? And that might be leaders in the way they parent
mm,
or the way they address their relationships or the choice to work or not work or all of those things or the way they touch their body. A
mm.
beautiful piece of leadership. Ownership of their own body. I bang on about that a lot.
I love that.
To reclaim oneself and start from that place.
Mm,
And then there is the sort of, ah, I'm meant to be a fucking rock star. But also, like being the age I am, it's like I've done a lot of things, you know, I've made money. So the whole six-figure coach thing, it's like, yeah, you know, but when in a moment I watch a client have an epiphany
mm,
and a moment that they didn't think was ever possible, it's
mm,
worth it. It sounds cheesy. It is worth more than six figures for me currently. If you're trying to buy a house and get a mortgage, maybe six figures is more important. But for me, it's about that moment. That's my motivation.
mm,
Everybody's this exciting puzzle. They come onto the
mm,
screen with me, and I'm just like scanning their maps, I'm scanning their threads, their stories, and I'm like, how are we going to put this in order?
mm.
That's the excitement for me.
I love what you said about reclaiming your body because I feel like this is a 2024 problem that is only going to escalate as time goes on, from here on
Mm.
out. What do you find in your work is the most, like the major contributor to that? Or why do you think that most women, especially, to be honest, everyone, women, men, everyone, most people are ending up in this place where they're actually so far away from their bodies, they can't even feel their pussy. They can't even feel their feet. Like they can't even feel it. What do you think is kind of the main thing that's pulling people so far away from themselves?
Yeah, it's such a good question, and you and I are on social media, right? And at times I question that because even that takes me away from my self-referencing. Like, so I have questions around that I ask myself, and at the moment I'm in a big ask around it. So you've kind of hit the point for me there. Because social media has people, I was talking at a summit about this last year, being viewed from the outside is the dominant culture right now within social
Mm,
media, and most people are on social media. So we become super, super aware of what we look like the whole time. That's the point. You have stepped outside of yourself. You are seeing yourself from somebody else. Therefore, you are no longer inside of yourself. And you and I know, as embodiment coaches, the sexuality coaches, that when we are inside ourselves, when we are digging down into sensation, when we are following sensation, then you are fully inside yourself. You're not thinking about how you look like. In fact, one of the problems we come across is worrying about what you look like, which is kind of sad.
mm.
If you want to disappear into the everything of existence, it's good not to think about what you look like in that moment because it is going to get in the way. And if
Mm,
that is if that is a fear, then so social media, I think, is the main contributor. And we're valuing people heavily for their looks.
Mm,
So one of the posts that comes out next week for me is about the external gaze,
mm,
and sort of, if somebody hasn't learned to look at you yet, with if they're so taken up with your form and not who you are, then they're not good enough for you.
yeah,
That's it. That's it.
absolutely.
And that's actually counterculture right now. It's like the
Mm,
whole arm candy thing. Client I worked with yesterday has a scar because some ex told her that actually she wasn't his ideal arm trophy. Really? Really?
wow.
Arrogance,
Mm,
destruction,
mm, mm,
expansion, empowerment, self-loyalty, self-leadership. That's where she's going. But
mm.
like, oh, I had to hold that piece yesterday.
Wow. That's
I'm
big.
angry. I'm
That's big.
angry.
I know it makes me so
I'm
fucking
so
angry too.
angry.
Makes me so fucking mad too.
Mm,
Okay, so here's what dropped in for me when you're talking. My mum, for example, is not in her body at all though. And she didn't grow up with social media.
mhm.
And I think most people in her, yeah, most people in her generation like are the same. I don't know that. I don't know that, but I sense that.
Mm.
So what was it for them, do you think? I'm curious.
Oh, I love the topic of pleasure. So, like, again, each generation is a puzzle, not just each
Mm,
individual. Like, so they grew up. So I have never met a human being yet that does not pleasure cap. Now I'm going to tell you what
mm.
I mean by that. Cindra's nodding because she knows.
Explain,
Like,
explain.
okay. So like that generation, maybe your mum grew up within a religion or a society or a culture. My background is anthropology, so I'm big on culture. Grew up in a culture that basically told her maybe there was a limit to her pleasure, or pleasure was
Mm.
bad, or if my friend has a joke, like if you pleasure yourself, a kitten's gonna die, or like
Mm. It's gonna fall
whatever.
off.
It's gonna fall off. Yeah, the whole thing, like it's dirty. So they started to leave their bodies at quite a young age around their own pleasure, around their own private parts.
Mm.
Their private parts became
Mm.
private from themselves. They locked it away. So religion was dominant, but also a more kind of anorexic relationship with pleasure is present in that generation.
Mm.
Um, and there's also trauma. I mean,
Yeah.
the dialogue, the discourse of trauma is expanding really fast, but it wasn't even a word for them back then. We were starting post some of the wars to talk about PTSD, but like family trauma, what was happening behind closed doors,
No, generational trauma,
generational
like,
trauma, yeah, healing intergenerational trauma wasn't even a thing. That's
mm,
that's our bag. That's what we're doing. So there's all of that hidden, and it's nice you brought your mum in because I see that also in that age group, and the compassion to sort of say, yeah, you were never set up to drop in, and it's not an external gaze. It's just that your body responded really appropriately in terms of flight, fight, freeze, or fawn, and
mm,
so there's a numbing there, even if it's not trauma. There's just a numbing. There's a like it's not safe to go there.
mm. I'm even thinking of the ads that were around when I was growing up, and it was all around like guilty, like if there was an ad about like an ice cream, like a Magnum, it would be like, oh, guilty, like guilty pleasure, and it'd be like a woman, like, oh, like like a sexy woman. She'd be like, oh, can only have one bite, like that was the ads, right? So an ice cream or a chocolate bar, like all of those kind of things were perceived as a guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
So like the programming around like the pleasure story there was like, yeah, like you can't have much. Oh, it's so naughty. Pleasure is so naughty. It's so
Yeah.
naughty to indulge in a bite of an ice cream.
Yeah, and that's not because they're into kink. It's good.
Although it's looking back now, it's like, okay, you've got like an ice cream kink. Like, okay, that's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
Like,
okay,
we
fair
can
enough.
work with
Yeah.
that. But
Bad girl, bad girl.
yeah,
Oh.
totally I'm good. Like that's fine. But like
Yeah,
it
yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
that. It was
Yeah,
that is how it was perceived, like pleasure.
yeah, limiting, really
Mm.
limiting. And maybe this is where like the more spiritual side of sex comes in. It's kind of like if we can expand beyond our own little busy mind with a shopping list for a moment into pleasure, what the fuck happens? I want to know.
Mm.
Yeah.
So the clients that are coming to you, and obviously, you don't, obviously you're not going to go into personal information details. However, the main kind of people that are coming to you, what's keeping them up at night?
Yeah, good question. That what I find in every client is it'll be something that they want, which is how we work personally in my field. Be something that they want, and it will be something that's getting in the way. So one of my clients, for example, wanted a relationship. Now she had experienced serious loss in relationship. So although she wanted the relationship to happen, a
Mm,
new relationship, actually her nervous system was saying, don't have a relationship. You're
it's
going
not
to get your
safe.
heart broken. So there's a lot of heartbreak in my office and repairing heartbreak so that a heart can feel good again to enter into a relationship of their choice. And then the rest is sort of some people come in the door and they'll be talking about one thing and then they realize they can talk about sex. And then they realize they can get anatomical information from me. And then they
Mm.
realize that they can get exercises that like actually increase the pleasure in their body or their sensation. And then they realize that it's a shame-free zone and kind of anything goes. So therefore they can really explore themselves and expand. So there's that side of it. I think one of my biggest transmissions is comes from my rebel. So I want to see them succeed and I will help them with whatever is in the way, the limiting thing, whether that's around intimacy or relationship or love. Lots of the women or people in my office end up changing career. Probably shouldn't have said that.
Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. Because the creativity innate in sexuality, once you have that on tap, feeding your business, your pussy-led business, starts to change things. Your course will change, and we want you to change. Human beings are meant to change. We're not meant to stay stuck or static. Like much as it's comfortable, like there's always something like you're like, ah, oh, I only have one orgasm. I'd like to have three. That's something that comes into my space. No one ever
Mm,
told me. How do I do that?
yeah.
There's a phrase, the phrase often happens, I know I'm having great intimacy, but I feel innately there's something more. That's a beautiful place to start from.
Yeah. Just that curiosity.
Yeah, that's a
Mm,
daring question for someone who's been brought up, positively blocked from that question.
mm. I one of the things that was really hard for me when I was into intimacy coach, and this is probably, internally I do put a lot of pressure on myself, also very driven, is that because you are talking about sex all day and you are talking about pleasure all day and you're talking about relationships and all these things, I personally found that sometimes that would wash into my own sex life or my own relationship in terms of like, oh well, fuck, have I been having enough sex? And like it would kind of like the pressure personally I was putting on myself to be like the intimacy coach with this like also like fucking thriving sex life and like exploring all of these like kinks and stuff and like constantly like on. Like I
Yeah,
think I did get quite burnt out towards the end until I was like, actually, you don't have to do that. Uh But yeah, I'm curious to know like your experience with that and how you kind of feed your own, you know, sexuality and pleasure in relationships and kind of keep those two things a little bit separated.
Yeah. I really want to go and listen to the first two podcasts, which I meant to do because I want to know why you changed, but you've given me a hint there of what was in there. I think definitely that's something that's passed through me, Sindra, is like uh to become, and there's another coach I know who had a huge following who just pulled out for a year. It's like anything. And I see this actually with people who have, ex addictions. You can spoil a topic by being in it too much.
Mm,
And I guess I'm lucky at that point to be able to start to titrate, and I'm going to be bringing more dance into what I do for one of those reasons.
mm,
Because although I'm intense and I explore things very fully, um, I don't want to be always on the same topic, you know. Um, so what the other things I do in terms of time out, I'm quite strict over the amount of time I'm on social media.
mm.
But I go running a lot. And it's always a barometer for me of how quickly do I get out of my head and into just the experience of running. I'm a music ho, so I'm like with music, I'm in the woods, like, and if that takes too long, then I've got to make an adjustment over the amount of time I'm spending on each thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
There's also,
think,
yeah.
sorry, go on.
No, no, go on.
I was just going to say, I think for all of us coaches, obviously, we get really involved in what we're doing, super passionate about it. Like I'm listening to business podcasts and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's having those barometers to check in and be like, how, like, of course, it's going to seep into your life because we work from home and, we
Mm,
make up our own hours and all that kind of stuff. But how
mm.
much of this is seeping into my life and like I'm not present for that part? And how much of it is just kind of like coming in and out like it kind of naturally should at times, I think.
Yeah, as a business coach now, with everything that you offer, like, what's your advice to clients like me, say, oh, I want to promote my podcast or my Instagram, and I'm thinking about this topic the whole time. Like, what's your, in hindsight, having been a few places now, what's your advice to them around it? Like, probably all the listeners want to know, right?
Yeah, is to set boundaries. And also I've got a really good screen blocking app
Hmm.
that I use all the time. So at night I like and on weekends I limit the time that I'm on socials.
Mm.
Also something that I'm really good with doing is I'll talk about work with my partner only for a certain amount of time and then we'll shift topics. So I'll get my spiel out. I'll be like, okay, cool, from like 7 till whatever is like, what's not strict, but like
Yeah,
7
yeah,
till
yeah, yeah.
7:30 is work chat time. And
Mhm.
then after that is our time, relationship time.
Yeah,
And that's
nice.
been amazing. And then as well, like you said, I've like what can I do for a hobby? Like I'm gonna start pole dancing
Yeah,
again because I've kind of lost a hobby over the last year just moving. So it's having something
yeah,
outside of yourself that is self-validating. It's like I'm gonna fucking go hang upside down on a pole and
yeah,
try to make myself look pretty in the air. And that's
yeah.
gonna give me something back. So I'm not always looking for that hit from my business.
Nice. Really nice. Yeah. And I'm really lucky because I've got two kids.
Mm, ultimate
So
distraction.
ultimate distraction and also ultimate priority. But I
Yes.
do see a struggle, and everybody's business has its own line in terms of your client base. So there
Yeah.
are a lot of solo entrepreneurs. But for me, like, and this is an important takeaway, be really aware of your value system the whole time.
Correct.
Every day I checked my value system. So what I mean by value system is like what is important to you and are you
Yes.
getting the balance right? So for me, my kids will always come first. And that's just the way it is. And so for me, if you can be on social media and if they need something, I can be on social media, and if I need something from and they need something from me, I'm gone. I
Mm,
am present to them.
yeah.
And because of love being such a strong motivator, they
Mm,
win every time, right?
mm,
Unless it's not that important. But so like the value system of balance, like I get time away from my topic because I'm hanging out, I don't know, at Adrenaline Quarry or like all the places that they love to hang out, and I'm fully in that. So
Mm,
so that's beautiful as a balance. It probably works for me. Other people might have pets. I've got a ton of them as well. Or
yeah.
whatever it be. Running and music for me is another huge go-to away
Mm,
from them all. But I
mm,
think I think in terms of business coaches, I've heard a lot of them talk about how clear your boundaries need to be if you are going to grow a large audience or a lot of people are going to work with you. So currently,
absolutely.
right now, one of my edges, I'm doing a piece of work this week around this, is having much stronger boundaries because otherwise, like I can't carry the number of people that I'm with. And I'd like to, it's fun and it's motivating, but also like body ownership. I've got to be for me at the end of the day.
Yeah. And we have to
Yeah.
be showing up as the full us, otherwise we can't be in service to other people. And I learned that the hard way. Like I burn out big time, and now I have like this ridiculous 2-hour morning routine because I need that. Like I don't
Yeah.
start work till 10 like
Yeah.
AM. I obviously for a
Yeah.
couple of like random clients, I will overseas
Me
clients,
too.
but like that's the time that I start work. I go for an hour's walk. I meditate on a rock. I go for a swim. I do my journaling. Like whereas
Mm,
before I'm like, oh, I have to work. I have to work. I've got to open up the calendar for clients. Well, no, they'll fit around
yeah.
that time. And if they won't, they'll ask me and I'll do a rare early morning. But to do the work, like the work that you do, like changes fucking people's lives. Like, the work that I did in the intimacy space, like I've changed like dozens of relationships. Like I've saved marriages. And I'm not just saying that like
Yeah, you have.
I actually have.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and now I get to help people, help more people. So, like, we have a really, the people are like, oh, coaching, whatever. But we as coaches, we used to have this really fucking important job.
Yeah, the responsibility is fucking enormous, right?
It's huge.
But I love it in some ways you're like further up the food chain.
Yeah.
You've like moved up the food chain. Yeah, because if you help me with my business or your listener with their business, then and they serve more people, then you've helped serve more people, right?
Yeah, and most
It's
of my
good.
clients are intimacy coaches, so I get to still stay
I
in the
bet.
space
Yeah,
whilst,
yeah, I
like
bet.
staying in the space. But I think
Yeah.
this conversation is so important around mixing your business because, and yeah, it's on my episode 3, one before this one.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because what happened with me is the first intimacy business that I had was with my ex. So, and I do see a lot of couples doing this, and I'm like, I'm curious to know how they're holding it because I know for me, like my relationship was a pillar of content. So it's like you're in a relationship, that's a pillar of content essentially. And then you're helping couples and like, but you're the couple that's helping couples. And like, whew, that was like even harder to separate. Obviously, what I do now, like, is very separate to my partner, but that's where it got really murky.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. In fact, the first time I came across you was in that first phase, I
Mm.
think. I was like, she's hot.
Thanks, babe.
Um, and so for you with your new business venture, like what you are doing now, is it easier to do the work-life balance?
Yeah.
And is there more of you available in your relationship?
Yes.
So good.
Mm.
So good.
And we've really worked on that too, obviously, because I use all my
Right.
tools that I use for my clients.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But whereas before, right? Because I teach my clients about relationship check-ins and
Mm,
intimacy dates and all of this beautiful stuff that they're all still doing because I check in with them from
yeah.
time to time. When I was trying to do that as well, like when I was teaching it and then I was trying to do it, and it was just like there was some like resistance, I think, because I was talking about it all the time and like, relationship check in. Like
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
been talking
Yeah.
about these fucking shit for 5 hours, so now I'm like, yes, let's do the check-ins. Like we don't watch TV at all. We do like intimacy nights and all this yummy stuff.
Yeah.
As there is more
Yeah.
spaciousness, and that it could just be me because I burnt myself out. It could be the way that I did business the first time, but
Yeah.
She's a regulated girly now that she's 40, you know?
Yeah, you're a big girl now.
Just sensible, sensible 40-year-old.
And we're meant to change. I guess like part
Mm,
of you must have been like, why am I changing? Like, what's going on? Or have I done something wrong just because I want to reinvent myself? Like,
mm,
um, but what a celebration to let yourself do things differently and see how that
mm,
feels. And I'm always with my clients, I'm like, do it as an experiment, do it as a playful experiment.
mm,
If I do this, how do I feel? If you didn't like it, then fine. If you loved it, do more of it.
mm.
So I guess it's like, oh yeah, it works for you.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
there's no cookie cutter
Yeah.
approach.
No, there is no when I first did some of my trainings, I did it just for me, to be fair.
Mm,
And part of me was just sort of like I could just like have fun all day, every day with myself, with what I know. And some days that is all I want to do, you
yeah.
know. I think women as well, if you're in a female body and you're living cyclically, can I just try and say that again?
Just take two.
Sick, sick, cry.
It's really hard.
Say
Cyclically?
it. Yeah,
Cyclically?
yeah.
Yeah.
If you're living with a cycle,
Yeah.
that was a
If you have a
fail.
cycle.
That was a fail. If you have a cycle, guess where I'm in my cycle. Um, if you have a cycle, also there is a big listening to that,
Mm,
produce your content or work with your maximum number of clients in spring and summer within your
mm,
cycle. And dig down deep into the insights you're having in your life come autumn and winter in your cycle. And I will ask my clients when I start to work with them, like, where are you today? Because it's going to
mm.
change where I'm going to take that session for them. Because if
I
they're ovulating,
love
they're
that.
they're going to be like, yeah, super positive, yeah, make the change.
Yeah.
If they turn up bleeding, they're going to be like, fucking tired, don't want to be here. Actually, I hate you.
I was gonna
Like,
cancel, but then it was too
great.
late, so I
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I had to be on the call.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like,
Mm,
great, let's dig down
powerful.
into hatred. What's hatred
Yeah.
got there for you? Like, what would you like to hate more? That's a lot
Mm,
of energy. Yeah.
mm. Yeah, I love working with your cycle, not against it. I've definitely moved a couple
Mm,
of master classes in the past or clients and things like that when I've
mm,
been like on my bleed and
mm.
tried to make things when like tried to make events on when I'm ovulating, not when I'm bleeding, because that's a freaking nightmare.
Yeah. And so in terms of pussy-led business, this for me is something really exciting. I was talking about it the other day. Like us as female entrepreneurs, right? How do we want to do it? Don't be fucking
Mm,
doing the 24-hour testosterone cycle way of working. Don't.
mm,
In fact, Bobby's great on this. If she wakes up at 2 a.m., she's journaling at 2 a.m. She's not like, I should be working at 9 a.m. at my desk tomorrow morning. She's like,
mm-hmm.
but like, so we really need to cut into entrepreneurship, into business, into how we're structuring our lives. Like my VA, she's like, I'm on my bleed. I'm like, do it next week. Don't do
Yeah.
it for me now. Do it next week. Next week, she's like, I'm super. Actually, I did more than I actually could have. And now what else do you want me to do? Like for me, that's radical. As a
Mm,
pussy-led business, I'm working with other pussies, my VA and our cycle, my cycle, and so there's a sort of breath around that has this beautiful intelligence of body behind it that I can trust because I trust my own body. I'm not
mm.
scared you're not going to be productive whilst ovulating. I know you're going to be.
Yeah,
Like,
there's no doubt.
fight that one.
There's no doubt. I think I do feel like though, a lot of female entrepreneurs are still trying to, it's almost like, and I get it, right? Like women are still not equally paid. Like
Mhm,
it's fucking fucked when you start to look at it. But I
mhm,
do feel like a lot of women in this space, in the entrepreneurial space that I see, are just fucking hustling all the time. And it's almost
mhm,
like they're trying to live up to this male standard, or just not even
mhm,
male, the standard of what
mhm,
an entrepreneur should be and what success should
mhm,
look like.
mhm.
And it's really interesting that there's people still trying to do that and still trying to like prove themselves by what, yeah, like you said, like it's your own business, but people are working 9 to 5. It's like, well, do you like working 9 to 5?
Exactly.
That's just a random number that someone picked.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the amount of work that we do in 8 hours, I mean, that would be enough for me for a whole week. I'd be done.
Yeah.
I'd be
Yeah.
finished. Essentially. And
Complete. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's
Completely.
yeah, it's interesting, like how do we as women kind of unhook from that?
Exactly. We're digesting the patriarchy all the time and everybody's suffering from it. So, like, what's exciting about people like you who are coaching business owners on how to do it is really cutting a margin around listen to your body whilst you're doing this and then
Mm,
watch the result. Like, you will succeed. Like,
mm,
ask the question of yourself, what is your timetable? And because everything's built around it, 9 till 5's built around it. Then we've delivered a school system
yeah.
has fucking school uniform and has kids looking like office workers. And what do? It's basically a
Sit at a desk.
babysit. They sit at a desk. They're babysitting children whilst their parents are sitting at desks. They're getting children to sit at desks, and then we wonder why things aren't working. And what's brilliant about the time we live in, for me, this is embody ownership. We're deconstructing all of that. We're asking the questions, how do we want to be running our businesses? How do we want to be parenting our children? How do we want to be cyclically aware? Got it
Oh,
that
you got it that
time.
time. Never.
Um, so it's exciting to bring it,
Mm,
and I hope we can bring that awareness into what we do. So my pussy-led business for me, like I want to pick my kids up from school
yeah.
like or wherever they're at. That's important to me. Like
Mm,
I gave birth to those chickens, like you think you could pay me enough not to pick them up? No way.
mm,
And there's mothers out there that can't afford that privilege, and it's okay because they'll be doing things their way, and their family system is full of love. Like,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I think so many things. But it's yeah, it's really powerful. And it's funny because I got off a mastermind call before recording this
Mhm.
podcast with my coach. And we were talking about, I was kind of like, like I'm just getting through things and I've got a bit of time. And she's like, well, you know what? You could just chill. You could just rest. And I was like, oh, yeah.
So challenging, right?
I'm like, like could rest. I could rest. I could, yep, rest. And so I feel like for me, the universe has like delivered this time, this space. I've been a bit sick and I've kind of been taking like things like a little bit slower. I don't have any like massive launches the rest of the year. And it's kind of like, whoa, that rest and not feeling that time with like creating a new program or like doing whatever it is like really daunting for me.
Yeah. Yeah, me also.
Rest. Oh,
Yeah, like that's a fucking anti-capitalist stance. Rest. Like this consumerist drive, this production drive, like, yeah, that's so honest. Like when I have a moment, I'm feeling guilty pleasure.
yeah,
And there it is.
right.
There it is. That's our version.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a big learning for me, and it's going to be amazing for my clients as well that this has been brought to me right now to fucking rest. And
What are you gonna do?
I
What
don't
is resting? Yeah, what does resting look like for you? Because that's the thing. You don't know. You don't know. A lot of my clients, well, a proportion of them are neurodiverse, so
yeah.
resting for them is like proper scary, right? Like,
Yeah.
because I have this image in my mind of like sitting in a chair,
Hmm.
but resting could be like dancing or running in the woods or podcasts or
Yeah, I've
like
got a trashy book, honestly, and
nice.
I could like walk my dog. What I envision is just like heaps of journaling, listening to like 60-minute meditations, like having naps, like
Yeah,
just literally the definition of what chilling is meant to be,
yeah,
actually doing that.
nice.
Probably like
Actually doing it.
masturbating,
Yeah, completely. completely.
Why not?
Yeah. And release radar, that's the kind of rest place for me as well. I'm like, what's all the new releases?
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
yes, yes. So yeah, listening to music and just
Mm.
bike riding, you know, like
Yeah.
just being, because I know that it's just going to supercharge my business and like I said, for my
Mm.
clients to like learn to embody rest and like rest without this thing, you know,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
rest without the phone.
Yeah.
So that's where
Yeah.
the Screen Zen, if you haven't got it, I'm not sure how you are with your phone, but the Screen Zen app is the best.
Okay, I'm gonna check that.
It's really, really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I can't believe that well, I can because I knew that we'd be chatting away for an hour.
Great.
So, where do we want to like drop people? Okay, let's drop people with two things to finish. What is your biggest piece of advice for other pussy-led business owners watching to thrive in their business while staying connected to their pleasure?
Yeah. There's a short answer and a long answer, so I'll do
Okay,
both.
yeah, do that.
One is dance breaks.
Yes.
That one tune. I know you don't want to play it, put it on. Like in between clients or in between tasks, dance breaks. Like you're going to change your whole like mood or your consciousness or something in there and have a designated playlist so it suits your own mood. But like that's just fail safe. You'll also discharge loads of the stress from your system or the content of your client in that moment if you let yourself move. So that is a really good way to regulate, clear stuff up, stay inspired, have your next idea, download your, next workshop, whatever it is, or answer the thing you didn't solve within the client session. It'll all
Mm,
come through when that cerebral mind is gone
yeah.
and you're really at your peak at that point.
Mm, love that. And
Yeah.
self-pleasure breaks. I do
Yeah, nice.
self-pleasure most days, like most work
Yeah.
days. It's
Yeah.
like not a long practice, but it's, get in there, have a little bit of fun, come out
Absolutely.
recharged. You work
Yeah,
from home.
yeah,
We work from
absolutely.
home.
We work from home and the work we're doing should turn us on, you know? Like you should have immense amounts of charge going through your body doing what it is you're excited about, which is what pussy-led business is.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And the long one?
They really know what we're doing next now.
Yeah.
It's just gonna
Well,
pop off the call.
just chop off the call. Well, it's 8:30 at night for me, so I'm like, I'm dinnering.
Okay.
That's my
Okay,
self-pleasure
nice.
practice. I'll be like
Yeah,
eating my
nice.
dinner.
Yeah.
And the number two is your work is freaking amazing, and I want everyone to be able to reach you and know what you're doing and roughly
Yeah.
know what you offer. So give us your best little roundup of how people can work with you and where they can find you.
Yeah, great. So the best way to book a free call with me is go to my website, feralgrace.net, feralgrace.net. You can hang out with me on Instagram, feral.grace. And I also ran a really beautiful course last autumn that I'm still offering cheap if people want to hook up with that. That's linking sexuality with your leadership. So
Mm,
how to step through some of those invisible barriers whilst being in connection with your body and where your next piece of leadership is. That course, just 5 weeks, boom. Loads of
wow.
good tunes in that course as well.
I love it.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, amazing. And honestly, like if you're listening and most of you do have a business, I highly recommend if you haven't worked on your sexuality, if you haven't worked on your pleasure, if you haven't worked on your intimacy, then really like for me, this is, the missing piece of the puzzle with a lot of female entrepreneurs, especially. Go and do it because I can't
Yeah,
tell you how much it supercharges your business as well as recharges your body and soul and pussy. And yeah, it's just that the work on sexuality and running a business just goes so
so
well
well together.
together. They're just
So
like
well. Yeah.
you almost you will burn out. I'm just gonna flat out say this. You will burn out if you're not prioritizing your pleasure and your intimacy in business. You will.
Yeah, it's a foundation.
Yeah.
It's not negotiable.
No, it's not like an
Um,
optional thing or like, oh, like
yeah,
honestly, do it. Like it doesn't have to take a long time. Anyway, that's a whole other story. But You know, we're not saying like, spend hours like doing tantra practices. Like if you want to, sure, but it's everyday stuff. And I'm sure this is what you teach,
Yeah, it
women as
is.
well.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
every day,
Absolutely.
easy. Like you
Yeah.
said, the dancing, like one song. I always said to my clients, one song. It's just one song. Like everyone's
Yeah.
got 3 minutes. Speaking of that, are you on Spotify? Can we find any of these like spicy playlists
Oh,
on
yeah.
Spotify?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Go to
Yeah.
Spotify. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Yep. Yep. Yep.
And
Search
there's a
your name.
free dance. Yeah, search my name. Chloe de
Okay.
Sousa is on there, not Feral.
Yeah.
And there is a free playlist that anyone who heads over there can download, which will give you a
Amazing.
30-minute dance workout, but you could have any of those tunes on singly. Yeah.
Well, I'm definitely going to follow you on Spotify because I want
Nice.
some of your little bangers. So thank you so
Excellent.
much, my love. It's been, yeah, such a pleasure and such a juicy conversation, which I think so many people are going to freaking get so much out of. So thank you again.
I loved being here. Thanks, Indra.